I think he's, I'm half just kidding. As I get older now, I got to use glasses a little bit here, but unbelievable week when you really look at a lot of things. We're just about ready to open up this building, and that's something to talk about in itself. I'm going to gloat and say the Michigan State game was something to feel good about for me, and I enjoyed just about every minute of that game, except almost the crazy ending. And I got a real good team that I absolutely appreciate, and I think we got a lot of things to talk about there. But like everything else, and I'm just going to get ahead of the questions. What's gone on with college basketball? There's a couple things that aren't quite as good to talk about, but I do want to tell you that just like everything in life, I think there's maybe a few, and I don't know who's right, wrong, or indifferent, nor do I care anymore. But there's a few that screwed up for the rest, and don't paint the brush. Don't paint the brush over everybody, because it's not the way it is. It's also a day that, as I've spent time with my players as we get ready, I talked a lot to my team about all the social problems that we're going through and all the things that are going on. Jeez. And try to get my arms around it a little bit. These issues affect their team. These issues affect our society. They affect all of us. So there are problems in society, and the issues involving race and equality is important to me for a lot of reasons. One, my own household, and two, my team here. And one of the things I love about sports, it's a true brotherhood. It's you think about it, we got guys from Flint and Okemos, we got guys from Alabama and Ohio. We have guys from Dallas and Detroit and from the Bahamas and Grand Rapids. As a team, we spent a lot of time discussing these issues and allowing everyone the opportunity to explain things from their unique and their own perspective. A lot has been made of the protests. Unfortunately, I think we've kind of lost in the protest what's really been important in this whole thing, and that's to try to make our country better and to try to give us a country that has more equality and instead of the social injustices that I think we have. And make no mistake about it, in my humble opinion, we have some. And it's kind of up to all of us to do something about it, but we need to be looking at real solutions rather than tearing each other apart. I don't have all the answers. My players didn't have all the answers. You don't have all the answers. But I can promise you one thing. If our team does anything, ever, it's going to be our team. It's going to be all of us. It's going to be our coaches. It's going to be our managers. It's going to be everybody, because that's what teams do. I can also promise you that it'll be something that'll be thought out and we'll look at as realistically as we can look at it. But I'm happy to say that I think we have had a good handle on it. Whatever you agree and disagree with, it's helped us with our conversations. And that is one of the main things we've been lacking. I heard something that said, are we about the protest or about the progress? And hopefully we're going to be about the progress. So it's a difficult thing, when you're talking to 17 to 22-year-olds. And I just thought I'd address to you the best thing that I can address to you, and that we're talking and we're trying to make the world a better place. And in some areas, the world needs to become a better place. And yet, it's hard to try to post up players on those questions, if you ask me. So now, with the basketball problems a little bit behind us and the social problems that we're in the midst of, but at least have been addressed, I want to talk to you about how excited I am with this team this year. It's a team of a lot of good players. We enter the season, we understand there are lofty expectations, and there are many goals that we have, some goals that our fans have, some expectations that a lot of people have. But it's been a team that's been driven all summer and fall. It started back in April when Miles made his big announcement. And I think it just kind of, I don't know, he's loved by these guys so much. I think it helped flourish an incredible spring, summer, and fall. There's no goals that are any loftier that you're going to put on us than we've put on ourselves. Handling expectations or success is always a key. You know, do you handle it the right way? Do you get big-headed? Do you think you've arrived? Do you believe your own press clippings? I saw my man Nick Saban the other day telling the media that he asked his players, "Are you listening to me or are you listening to them?" Well, as Judd Heathcote, my boss, always said, you know, you guys got a job to do and I got a job to do, and hopefully we're both going to do it well this year. Last year, we featured a pretty good soccer team, a pretty good hockey team, but as Dick Vitale says, when we walk through the airports, we look like a soccer and a volleyball, or a soccer and a hockey team. This year, we have one of the tallest teams we've ever had. I think we've got more than a few guys, 6'7" or bigger. And last year we were held hostage to average play on the defensive end, sometimes inside, to foul trouble, to injuries. And I don't see that happening this year. Those weaknesses have turned into strengths. You know, what we were lacking last year, the depth, especially inside, I think now could be a strength of this team. With our guards, what we lacked last year was any real experience. I think now we have, even though it's only sophomore experience. When I watch our sophomore, juniors, and seniors bring along our freshmen, it reminds me of old times, because we have, even though sophomores aren't real experienced, these sophomores are, because they had to play so many minutes. We returned 4 of our top 5 scorers and 8 of our top 10 players. And we really think we have a chance to be a good team. Our roster starts with 2 captains, Tom Nairn. His 3rd year as a team captain. He'll probably go down as one of the greatest program guys of all time. He doesn't let playing time on the court, his role, his leadership, doesn't worry about scoring, doesn't worry about all the things. I've had a lot of good and cool leaders over my time here, but none maybe that has done more for not only our community, our school, our players, our coaching staff. This is a special kid. And Miles Bridges, our other elected captain, deserves all the attention he's received. And so far, he's handled it with humility and humbleness like hasn't been seen around here that often. And I say that not insulting our other guys, but more or less complimenting him. He's handled it with class. And if you talk to him, he'd much rather talk about his teammates, the program, the coaches, than himself. He's an unselfish guy, and it filters down through the team. He's got some things he's got to get better at, you know. He's going to be moving around different positions. He's got to get better with the ball. He's got to get better guarding, sometimes point guards, if we start switching a lot like we've done in the past. And so there's going to be some things that are going to be more difficult for him. But I can't think of a guy who's worked harder all summer to make sure he's ready, and I think he'll be more than ready for an incredible season. Our seniors, Gavin Schilling and Ben Carter, other than Tom, kind of are similar guys. They both had knee injuries the first day of practice, first week of practice, and they had serious knee injuries. But as Dwayne Stevens said the other day in practice, he's amazed how fast Gavin has come back. Kind of like we had Brandon Dawson a few years ago that blew his knee, and by the time we went and played in Germany was almost everything that he was the year before. Right now, Schilling is moving around pretty well, considering the time he was out. He's improved a lot, and I promise you this when I say it, I think he'll be one of the best ball screen defenders, not only in Michigan State history, but in the country. So one of our weaknesses last year was we struggled defensively guarding ball screens, and I think he's going to give that a big lift. They give us different looks, the two guys. Ben is kind of a Draymond Green, intelligent guy. He understands the game. He has a great feel for the game. He is not 100% yet. This is his second knee injury. He is playing, though. He is practicing almost full go now. Everything except the livest of live contact. He's doing scrimmaging. He's doing. And he's been such a good teammate to these guys. I think he's been an inspiration how hard he's worked. And I think Gavin's been, as I said, a great post defender. Ben's got the great IQ. The combination of two, I think we're going to be able to utilize a lot. I do not know how long Ben will be able to play or how much he'll be able to play. That is in the future to be seen. Gavin, I think, will be 100% by the time the season starts. Ben, I think it's going to take a little while longer. Our juniors, McQuaid, Goins, and Aarons. Kyle has been hurt. He had a little bit of a stress reaction. He's been out for like 4 or 5 weeks, but is just starting to come back now. He's had an incredible spring and summer. He's one of the toughest kids on my team. And, has played a bunch of positions, gained weight to play the 4 when we didn't have anybody. Now he's lost some weight. He's back to being what I'd consider a pretty good 3 and a backup to Miles. Can hit open shots, and he got his athleticism back. He's been hurt since he's been here. He was hurt in high school. It's just kind of freak accident, though, broken leg, things like that. I'm expecting, if I looked at how he did in the spring, summer, and fall, until he got hurt in the middle of August, him to have a very good year. The other 2 guys, Goins and McQuaid, were the 2 guys that we really needed to step up last year. One had that double sports hernia and missed all summer, and one had the knee surgery and missed all summer, and did not have great years. And they too have had great spring, summers, and falls. Kenny is not even wearing a brace anymore. I think he's really benefited from the healthy summer. Last year, Kenny was asked to play the role of backup center or sometimes starting center. And at his weight at the time, which is up about 15 pounds now, and at his size, he didn't fare good against my man from Purdue. It was like David against Goliath. And, I think Kenny has really made some strides. He's shooting the ball better, and he'll be playing a lot better back at the position that he should be playing. In McQuaid, he gives us the one thing. He's not Bryn Forbes, but he gives us an outside shooter that can really shoot it. And we need that. His ability to knock down open outside shots will be a big key. He, too, is maybe one of our better defensive perimeter players. He's got a good basketball IQ of it. He plays hard, and he's been a good defender as a freshman. He was one of our better defenders that year. Our sophomores, our super sophomores, besides Miles, of course, Langford. If I looked at his last month or so, I think he's really elevated his game even from the summer. He's gotten himself in the best shape of his life, and it's been really funny. I still give John Calipari a lot of credit because, it's interesting when you talk to these guys like Cassius and him especially, and they thought they were doing so much last year and just didn't realize as a freshman what it takes to be great. And John always tells me his guys go through the same thing, but he's got to do that year after year after year. And in my own way, I've learned to respect it because I think it's so hard to do. And this year, as Miles said to me this summer, he said, I just feel more comfortable because I know where my classes are. I know what basketball is going to be like. I know how to handle the other situations. They always say your best improvement is between your freshman and sophomore year. And I think this kid I mean, I've got a bunch of guys that are working their tail off. None work harder than this kid. He's probably in here more and spends more time on his game. Very good student, and it's worked out well. So we expect Josh to take a monstrous stride on both the defensive and offensive end this year. And there's no question that, for us to be great, Cassius Winston has to be the player that we all know he can become. Without a doubt, his play will be a major key to our season. And his thing started back in May when we got done with the season, got done with school. We let everybody go home for 4 weeks just to get out of here. And he went home for 2 days and came back up here and started lifting and running and getting himself in the best shape of his life, changing his body. He transformed his whole body, and to me that spoke wonders. He was the only player on campus most of that time, and just did it, not on his own because he had help from our strength coach and everything, but did it with no other players around, which speaks volumes. He needs to be an adequate defender, and I think he's made some progress. I made no bones about it. That was not a strength last year. It never has to be a strength. It just has to be, you have to be able to do it somewhat. I think this year, so far, he's proven to be a much better defender. And one of the reasons, I think, one of the goals I set for my team this summer is everybody's got to play one-on-one against somebody that's better than them, that's quicker than them, that's bigger than them, that's stronger than them. So Miles had to play tum-tum some, and in Cash's case, he had to play tum-tum for the speed. He had to play against Bridges or Langford or McQuaid for the size. So everybody would probably get better in all ways, shape, and form as far as developing different abilities. Nick Ward, the last of the sophomores, last year, when I think of some of the pregame talks, those Newt Rockney speeches that never work, but when you're trying to rev a team up and get them to go and it's the old knock them on its butt and do this and play hard. And by the way, Nick, just kind of don't touch anybody, don't look at anybody, don't see anybody. Now, he did a hell of a job of that defensively. I mean, he accomplished the goal that I set for him, but that's got to change. And he knew it, and I knew it. And I don't blame him totally, because what I just said, that's the speech I gave him before we played Miami. If any of you were down there, I told him, no, Nick, they got big athletic guys. We just can't get you in foul trouble. We got no bigs. We had, we lost our two guard. We had nobody left. Don't get in foul trouble. So Nick, as he, the respect he has for me, he listened, and he went out there, and he set a national record. He got the first foul a second and a half into the game, and on a jump ball. Hard to do. But I think those days are behind us. He's even in better shape. He's worked his tail off. This year, we're going to get back to the Nick Ward, who's a tough, strong, as I said, he's moving up and cutting off the pores. Poor Zach Randolph. He's subtracting pores on that. We're getting closer, and one of the ways he can become more like Zebo is if I can let him play without telling him he can't touch anybody. So I think you'll see a more physical Nick. I know you'll see a better conditioned Nick, and I think you'll see a lot better defensive Nick. And if those things, happen, he's coming off one of the best freshman scoring seasons statistically in MSU history. So he's got that going for him, but we need more if we're going to get to another level. The other area that I really want Nick to improve on is he's a very good offensive rebounder because he wants to score, but not as good a defensive rebounder. This year, we've got to get him better on the defensive board, so that'll be the goals for him. As far as our two freshmen, actually we got four of them. We have two walk-ons, and Brock Washington and Jack Hoiberg, and I've been very pleased with both of them. Brock can really shoot the ball. He's got some size. Jack does not have the size of his father, but he's got the smarts of a coach's son. And they've been great on our scout team so far. Much needed when you think of last year, what we had. A walk-on that's capable of playing at another Division I school is one thing. A walk-on that's not capable of playing many places is another. These guys are capable of playing places. And Xavier Tillman, he's probably been the biggest surprise of camp. I thought he'd be a good player, and I think before he's done, he's going to be a great player. Again, just changing your body makes such a difference. He's lost 20 pounds. He looks so much more athletic, but he is very cerebral, very well coached, and very in high school, and very tough. So he brings something that, like Nick. Now we get Gavin back. We got 3 hockey defensemen. Guys are going to not be afraid to bang some people and get back to the way we play. And I think Xavier is going to fit in there very well. And in Jaren Jackson, there's just a wealth of talent there, Every once in a while I got to remind myself, he just turned 18 about a week ago. And he's a very, very young player, but very gifted, very skilled, very long. 6'10" and a half, but he's got a 7'4" wingspan. And his length creates some problems already, but he doesn't just have length like some guys. He has great length, but he also has the ability to shoot threes, and so he can combine both. Defensively, like all freshmen, he's got to improve, but one of the things he did this summer is went from 225, now I think he's 224 to 242. Right now, that's a decent amount of weight to gain. So we had one lose 20 and one gain 18. And I think that's a tribute to our strength and conditioning guys. So I've kind of gone over all the things. I guess I'll just leave it up to your questions. Hundo.
Tom, you hit the jackpot last year with Miles to have that talent, but with that character. And it was just a rarity to see. This year we were standing with Jaren at Moneyball, and a person told him, we're going to enjoy you for the 1 year we have him. And he looked at him and goes, I have so much to get better. Why would you even think that way? And he wasn't being fake. He was being honest. Do you kind of feel like lightning struck twice with 2 kids of that character back to back?
I think lightning struck twice that they're 2 character kids and incredible families. I don't know what Jaren will do. He doesn't know what he's going to do. What he's got to do is get better to make us a better team this year, and I think that's what he's setting his sights on. I know from his family standpoint, everybody. You 2 are the only one in my building that aren't one and done right now. Every kid thinks he's one and done. Every kid wants to be. No insult to either one of you, but look in the mirror and you'll understand why. You're just not ready to play at that level. But I think, in Jaren Jackson, he's got a good role model to learn from. Take care of your business, let the rest handle itself. Don't worry about all the other things. Worry about being the best freshman you can be. And if that turns out to be good enough that he moves on because it's what he should do, the nice thing that I know, his mother's involved with the WNBA, his dad played in the NBA, there will not be a bad decision made. And that makes me feel good. The problem is like all freshmen, he's got a long ways to go. He's got to get better at some things. And yet, kind of a treat to coach, very smart kid. He's a very, very, very smart student. And so put those 2 things together. He works on his game. He's around those guys that play so hard, meaning Tom, and he kind of lives with Josh and Miles. So he's got good people to look to try to get better, and I think he will. And I think he'll do something that a lot of kids don't do. Let the process happen. Let the process happen, see where it takes you, but not coming in, and the good news is you reiterated it, not coming in thinking he's already accomplished the world. He realizes he has a lot of things to do, and one of them is to help us, get to be the best team we can be.
Coach, to your left, back by the cameras, I'm hiding. Can you expand upon Xavier Tillman, calling him the biggest surprise at camp, and just kind of
Well, the
touch
reason
on
I
what he's
say
done?
that is we thought he'd be a very good player, but he's just come on faster. I really attribute a lot of it to losing the weight, and he just kind of he's more athletic than we thought. He runs the court better. He's got great hands, and they're big hands. And so I say surprise. I guess you could take it insulting, like we didn't think he was any good. I mean, we offered him a scholarship. Of course we thought he was good, but he's a lot of times you get guys and the rankings are always so high and this and that, and they never can live up to them themselves. He's a kid that wasn't ranked off the charts, but is better than the ranking gave him. Those are what I call nice surprises, and it's just such a good class too with him, Jaron, and Brock, and Jack. They all get along well. So hopefully keeping the tradition, keeping the culture alive here, and I think those guys will do a good job of that.
Tom, you talk about over here. They kicked me over to the cheap seats. You talk about telling your players not focusing on the media, but when you look and you see that your team is ranked preseason 3, 2, and 1, what is the message that you tell them? Do you embrace this, or do you tell them, guys, we still got a long way to go?
Well, I did tell them the stories. I've told them the stories when we weren't ranked at the beginning of the season and made it to a Final Four. I told them the stories that we, different rankings. I told them the stories of how we've gone to Final Fours with no pros and we've gone there with 3. I've told them the stories that we didn't get there with 3 pros sometimes, So the advantage of either being old or experienced, whatever you want to call me, is I've got a lot of experience at different things. And the one thing I told them is, so all those things I've talked about to my guys, I said, I've been unranked and looked like nobody cared about you. And we've been ranked 1 in the country and had pressure on us. I much more like the pressure, because that's better for the program. It's better for the players. It means that we're legitimate contenders for something. I mean, we got a lot of work to do, We needed to get better defensively last year. We're moving people around in positions. We've got more depth. I'm going to have to do a better job coaching them. I always kid that they held me hostage last year. If they didn't play bad, I'd look down the bench and I had nobody to put in, But on the other side, now we got a lot of depth. I'm going to have to do a little work. And last year was harder on me to look down there, but it was easy because I just said, hey, I'm playing who I'm playing. And so I told them that you better embrace it because, not all the time do you get it. And really, if you can't handle it, you shouldn't have come here. I mean, we've proven over the years now enough times that, we're a quality team. We've been ranked in the top 10 a lot more than we haven't in the last 15 years. And, hopefully that's why you came. You came for that. So, the only pressure that you'll put on yourself if you don't prepare to be as good as we think and they think. It's like not preparing for the test. You should go in there nervous as hell. But if you've done your preparation work, you should go in confident, feeling good. That doesn't always mean you'll win, evident by the Middle Tennessee. I got a lot of great things I can bring up to my team, good and bad and indifferent. But they're all facts of life. They're all part of the way the world works. And I'm telling them this year, learning from 2 years ago, that we got to try to have great practices every day. Never going to be satisfied with anything less because, as we learn in one and done time, one bad day. So let's practice, with the mission in mind that we don't want to have a bad day in the Big Ten tournament. We don't want to have a bad day in the NCAA tournament. We don't want to have a bad week if we got 3 big games in a row because we're going to have a couple of those kind of weeks. Let's work on being as good as we can be every time we take the floor. And I think that's kind of the mission statement of the year.
Coach, right in the back here. You talk about, a lot about the freshman to sophomore jump. With that said, is it safe to say that, with the talent that the freshmen from last year had moving to their sophomore year, is Michigan State going to go as far as the sophomores take them this season?
I mean, I don't even know who I'm starting yet. I have a decent idea, but you just think about it. I could start 4 sophomores and a freshman. I could start 4 sophomores and a senior. I could bring 3 guys that played in the Final Four. I think 2 might have even started. 1 for sure did, and Tom, and I think Schilling played a lot in that game if he didn't start. Coming off the bench maybe, there's a lot of different ways we can go. So I think our sophomores are going to be important, but I do think of Gavin Schilling. I think of Matt McQuaid, of Kenny Goins. I think those guys, Jaron Jackson, maybe Xavier, those guys are going to be important. We're going to play more guys. I mean, we're not going to play 12 guys, but we're not going to play 6 like we went through last year either.
Excuse me, you talked about Langford a little bit earlier, but how much different, you say he's improved, how much of it is he's healthy now? How much of it is maybe a mindset because he's healthy now? Because I feel like we saw a little glimpse of it late last year, just a little bit.
You did see a little glimpse late, and that was, if you want poor coaching, I'll give myself a D in something right off the bat. He was hurt. He missed that whole last month of the preseason. And then we got him healthy a week before we went to Arizona, and we played him there, and I tried to play him a lot, and I thought I'd play him into it. I acted like an NFL quarterback coach, like you can play a guy into it and he's going to get better. But what happens when you play a guy into it and he's not ready to do that? Sometimes he loses confidence. Sometimes he never gets healthy. So I don't think he did a bad job. I think I did a poor job. And maybe how I handled that. He's such a good kid. You kind of go by what they say. There's no question he was injured for over half the year last year. Not anything serious, not anything he should have been held out, but it was a hamstring, and that's a tough injury for an athlete. But I think he is more confident this year. I think he got better with the ball. I think he's a much better defender. When you ask those guys to have to be good defensive players last year, and then with the lack of depth we had, they had to play a lot of minutes. It's just a bad combination of things. So I do think what you saw at the end, or you saw tidbits of, I think you're going to see that on a more consistent level. And like I said, that kid has worked his tail off all spring, summer, and fall.
Tom, you talked about the different things that you did with the guys going against smaller guys against bigger guys against smaller guys. From that standpoint, I guess, what development growth did you see from those guys? And also from a practice standpoint, how much is it going to help those bigger guys to go against the bigger guys this year?
Well, I think that's going to help a lot. I think what you got in the first part of the question was, again, Miles got to guard Tom. I mean, Tom is a hard guy to guard if you're trying to guard him to not let him go around you. If you want to sag off him, he's easier to guard. But I mean, we played it so that he had to push up on him and guard him. And not many people can guard him. He's quickest guy as I've ever coached. So that helped him. I think with our bigs, I mean, last year Austin Thornton played center some. Matt Van Dyke, when he wasn't starting, played center some. We had guys playing center that, God, I could have posted up a couple of those guys. So it wasn't a good situation. Every time Nick Ward turned around, he made a shot last year. Now the first 2 weeks, every time he turned around, he got a shot blocked. So we've had to learn to adjust. My good friend Doug Herner, who's on our staff kind of as the assistant to the assistant video coordinator, he said it best to me after the first 3 days. He said, "You better be prepared for some ugly practices." I said, "Man, what do you mean? You don't like the team, He goes, "Yeah, I like the team a lot. Just that you got a lot more guys now that are playing for their lives. Nick is going to get up on those ball screens, or he's going to be enjoying a seat with me, and guys are going to be playing harder. And with the length, I mean, it's not just that we have more size. Kenny Goins has a 7'1" reach. Xavier's right around 7. Jaron's 7'4" reach. Gavin, I think, is 6'11" or 7 foot. So we have length. And there hasn't been a lot of times, those of you who follow us a lot, we've had tremendous length. Now, what does that mean? What it does is it means that, all of a sudden the pass that was there isn't there. And our guys haven't adjusted to this. We've turned the ball over too much, and that was one of the things from last year that was a thorn in our side. This year, I think it's for different reasons. But they have helped our guys grow already. I mean, rebound, ball goes up. There's some bodies going after the ball this year. And, Nick is at times one of the smaller bodies. Last year, he was the Jolly Green Giant over a bunch of, small guys. So that's been an adjustment. And like Doug said, I can't be frustrated with our defense is better, so shots aren't as easy. We have guys that, we got subs that could be starters and starters that could be subs, and it's a good problem to have, like in 05, when we were able to play a lot of guys that way, and we got size, which we didn't have then. So, putting them together is still going to be a job in itself, but a job I'm looking forward to.
Tom, right here in the middle. You mentioned the pressure. Last year, Miles, as a freshman, it seemed like he dealt with it a little bit. This year, though, as a sophomore, I imagine you guys have had some conversations over the summer, and with him coming back, how is he handling it? How does he kind of recognize his role and just kind of how he fits?
So Miles is an incredible kid. How he handled it last year was great. How he handled the situation was great. How he stayed so humble. How he's done such a good job in school. All the things that you think would start to drift away because, he's in his second year, maybe more fat and sassy and comfortable, have gone just the opposite. I think he's more hungry than he was even, but he's handled it. But I think you're kidding. We're all kidding ourselves, including me, if we don't think there's more pressure on him than anybody, because there is. And, and sometimes... he's going to have to handle that in different ways. And of all the times, I can tell him things from other players. But this is going to be the great time. This is where Gary Harris is and Magic's and Draymond's and, people like that are really going to help because I didn't have a chance to leave after my freshman year or sophomore year. I had a chance to leave. It was to go to Gogebic, transfer to a junior college, because I wasn't good enough to play at Northern. So a little different scenario for me, and I think that we all think he's Superman and he can handle everything because he's so humble and all that, but he's going to go through some tough times, and we just got to be there for him because there will be a lot of pressure on him. Some of it's self-imposed, and yet, boy, I haven't seen a chink in the armor yet. I really haven't, and if there is one, I'm going to help him patch it. And if there isn't one, then he's even more special than I thought, because I think a lot of people, when you get your sophomore year, you have that. I know Gary Harris, he's kind of flourished in that role. Not quite the same as Miles is in some ways, but similar.
How has the team this year kind of helped the freshmen, Jackson, all of them transition to be student athletes at Michigan State, especially with you guys projected to go to the Final Four and stuff like that?
Well, I think we're projected to be a good team. I guess some project us to be a Final Four team. We got so much work to even think about that. So we really haven't. We know what our goals are, but our goals don't change many times. Last year we probably changed them because I think you have to do two things. You have to dream big and keep your goals big, but you have to be realistic with your goals, or otherwise it's phony and they'll see right through it. So there's been a lot of years here that the goal was to win the Big Ten. The goal was to get to a Final Four. It's just that now there's a lot more people talking about it. That was the internal goals. But I think those upperclassmen have helped a lot. We've had a kid like Ben and Gavin who's had things taken away from him. We still got Aaron Harris here who's rehabbing to get back, and hopefully by Christmas is going to either go to Europe or the D-League. And so, these are guys that had it taken away from them like that. With Miles and Josh and Cassius, these guys are good players that are really good students. So we can help with the academic side of things that way. You know, Gavin's already graduated, Ben's already graduated, you know, Tom's this close to graduating. So, I mean, I guess maybe there's no pressure on them. Maybe it's all on me because I've said way too many good things about my team today already. So hopefully I don't see you guys for 2 months so I can get back to being a jerk, because this is how I really feel about my team. I just don't want to tell them that every day.
With Jaron, most freshmen of his caliber don't walk into a situation like this with all these guys back and all this.
Mm-hmm.
How do you think he will handle, not having limitless minutes, limitless shots, all these opportunities that other guys like him kind of get?
I think he'll handle it great. He's been raised really well, and like I said, mom and dad are both in the athletic world. They understand it. At Lollimer, where he played, not positive, but I think he might have been the third leading scorer just because of situations there. He's a very unselfish kid. You never know until things happen. You never know how guys handle something until something goes wrong. But, I like our chances, and I think I got enough good guys around him to help him through those things. It's going to be it's a learning process for everybody, and it's not new for me, but it'll be one of the 2 or 3 deepest teams, 2 or 3 in 23 years. It's not like you have deep teams every year, especially this day and age. So it'll be one of the deeper teams that I've had too. So I understand that, and most of the kids don't. And but I think they get along so well. I think they're going to embrace it. I really do.
So you just answered half of my question. I was going to ask you if it's the most talented and deepest team. So we'll just go to talented. Is it the most talented team you've had in mid-October?
Yeah, that's the hard part. In mid-October, can I compare it to other teams? I never remember what mid-October was. I still think one of the most talented teams I had was in 01, believe it or not. Even though we lost Cleves and Peterson, we had, Hudson, David Thomas, we had those talented freshmen in Zach and Marcus. That was Jason Richardson. That was a pretty talented team. And we had some depth because we had some guys that we sat out the year before when we won it, like Ballinger, I think, Andreas, Wolf. That was a fairly big team, fairly talented team. But, we really were a little bit lacking a point guard. Remember, we played Charlie there some, and we had to play David there some. And, now I think we got 2 guys to run our team. JR and Miles had some similarities in a way on some things they do. Zach and Nick have some similarities in some things they do. I don't know. I'd say it's one of the 2 or 3 deepest and one of the 2 or 3 more talented. But yet, like I told you, we could be still very young. That gets blown away because of Kentucky. For the most part, Duke a little bit. It gets blown away like it doesn't matter. But if you ask John even himself, to stay consistent with a bunch of young guys is hard. And we still could be playing a lot of young guys. And some of them are really talented and some of them are just talented. So we still got a lot of work to get better, and it usually ends in the defensive end and the turnover end. Those are the 2 areas that youth usually fumble a little bit. Hopefully these guys won't.
Tom, wondering in the past year how you've seen the Tom and Cassius dynamic kind of evolve, and how much of a role is Tom going to have in helping him get to the level that he needs to get to this year?
Tom's going to help me get to the level I want to get to. That's how much. I talked to a couple NBA guys that were in yesterday. Seth Greenberg was in from ESPN doing a little something yesterday, and I walked up to all of them at the end, and their words were, "He's incredible." I said, "Who's that?" And they were talking about Tom, who's I mean, I tell him this, so I guess I can tell, he might be my 9th, 10th most talented guy. But it just depends how you rate talent, The neatest thing that I've seen in those two guys is they embrace each other like it's special. There's no jealousy between Cassius and Tom, and no jealousy between Tom and Cassius. And I think everybody's aware that on paper, there's no doubt. I mean, they're going to play together some. I played them together a little bit yesterday. I mean, Cassius is shooting the ball really well. And if he ran as hard at the point as he does at the wing, he really take his game to another level. He did some impressive things yesterday. So I think they'll help each other. I think they compete against each other every day. And it helps make Tom a little better shooter because Cassius teaches him that. It makes Cassius a little better defender because Tom teaches him that. It's I'm blessed with having two guys that get along and understand that we need them both, and I think they'll do that all year.
When Gary Harris decided to come back, you talked about second contracts and guys just jumping for the first, and you're as much as on fire as any school in the country with recruiting. So how much does it help when he signs those second contracts like he just did?
Well, I was happy for him, man. I talked to him that night, talked to his mom. That's one of those moments where that's where it's a fun time to be a coach. You watch guys that have worked their tail off. You watch guys that have a dream that they all think they're going to be there. But then the numbers show that a quarter of 1% of them are going to be there. You realize how long a shot it is. And, we knew in the summer when he was here in August, they were working on his contract. It just happened early in the week. We had a scout in from Denver. I said, Coach, I said, what are you going to do with my boy, because it's been dragging on. He says, we're going to get it done. We're going to get it done. Sure enough, 3 days later, at least the guy didn't lie to me. They got it done, and sure, it'll help recruiting, but to be honest with you, and talking to Gary, his mom and dad, that's even better for me than helping him recruiting. I mean, it was just such a good feeling, and proud of him. I'm proud of him because he did it the right way. He worked his tail off and got better every year that he's been in basketball. And right now, he's playing pretty well. It's another good thing about this week. Maybe it's our week, Denzel, I watched him play well last night. Bryn Forbes 2 nights ago had 20 in a game. He's doing well. So, some guys are doing better and better, and that always helps recruiting. But I think it helps the program because it means our guys are getting it done out there, and I appreciate that.
Tom, you spent the last half dozen or so year talking a lot about chemistry. With this group, was there anything that you had to do in terms of trying to build the bond this year, or was it to that point now with these guys where you just can kind of let them go and enjoy that?
I've spoken a little bit more corporately this summer, and one of the things I talked about was culture. And if your culture's good, as things change, as people come in and go, the culture of your place, is part of that. Thanks to the Draymonts of the world, our culture is really, really, really good. And thanks for him dragging people back and what we do. But again, Tom, I told my assistant coaches the first week of school, I said, I want to have an academic meeting here tonight. Make sure you call the guys. And I called one at night. I said, did you get everybody? Make sure they're there at 7:30 tomorrow morning, because it's the first day of class. I didn't want anybody screwing anything up right off the bat. And I said, did you get a hold of everybody? I said, well, I got a hold of Tom. I said, well, what the hell does that mean? And that's one guy. He said, oh, he's got everybody on the list. He says, that's taken care of. And so about a week later, after we did this a couple of times, and they said, well, we called Tom. I said, you guys better enjoy the vacation, because once he leaves, that's one area that I can't think of a better guy I've had in that as far as rallying a team and keeping them together. If you ask Miles, I'm not sure Miles didn't half stay for Tom as much as the program and himself. And just has an incredible impact on people. So I think the culture is good and the base is really good, but that kid makes it a little special for everybody, and I think every player would admit that. And so I don't have to do as much with the culture, with the chemistry. I just got to figure out who plays and who plays which place and when they play, and do my job now. And I don't know if my assistants get the year off or what, but they better start realizing that when he goes, it's a whole new ballgame.
Coach in the back here. You talked earlier about you like the pressure as a coach. You'd rather have the pressure than not. Evaluating yourself, how do you feel you coach with pressure as opposed to some of the teams where maybe you came in and people weren't having the expectations that they have this year?
Well, you can look at it two ways. My first 3 years, nobody thought we were any good. And that pressure was to keep my job. So when I think back, that was real pressure, I wasn't going to, having a bad year and having 550,000 alums mad that we didn't win as much as we should, that's a problem, and that's not good. But knowing that you might not get a paycheck the next month, that was real pressure. So I don't know if I coach any different. Last year I tried to have a little more patience. They always say there's a reason for everything. Maybe last year helped me have this much more patience. They say it's a great virtue. I'm not really fond of it personally, and don't think it's as cool as everybody else thinks it is. But I don't know. I figure that every year I'm here, there's pressure. And the day there's not pressure, it's time for me to leave. And I tell players, if you don't like, the old adage, you don't like the heat in the kitchen, get out of the kitchen or whatever. I don't know what they say, something like that. But what do they say? Somebody's laughing. Is it? That's about what I said. Jeez, Rico, God darn. Don't have to get so specific on me. There's heat in the damn kitchen, and if you don't like to be in it, then you're not made for this program. How's that? That's the Uper way of putting it, and that's the way I'm going to put it. There should be expectations. There better be expectations. There should be pressure. There better be pressure. And if that pressure isn't there, last year there was pressure coming in. We just got so decimated early that I think people gave us a hair of a hall pass. And all of you, it was, I think everybody understood. But no, I think they know why they came here. I know why I'm here and why I haven't left. I love it. I love the pressure because it means you're in the right place. It's not so good not to be cared about.
Tom, you talked about the state of the game earlier, and that it's a few who have been involved in this. But at the same time, when you see a coach at the status of Rick and you see multiple programs being involved in this, more likely to come, is this at a point where the current model can be fixed, or is this a breaking point where sweeping change needs to occur?
Wow, that's a good question. I think change needs to occur, but I've been saying that for 10 years. I think the summer model has got some issues, and I think some of it is issues for the poor players, that are playing that many games. So I think in general, most people would agree that there's just too many people that touch these players now. And like everything in our society, as my boss, Judd Heathcote, used to say, 10% of the things are bad. Everybody's got some 10%ers. Might be 12, might be 8, might be this and that, but when you have a bunch more people touching you, you got a lot better chance for a bunch more problems. And I think that's what disappointed me. I tell every recruit that comes here as a freshman and sophomore when they come up with their families, I said, my only piece of advice, don't let the process ruin you, because we will. I blame myself. And keep your group small. Whatever that is, keep it small. You know, you've been raised by mom and dad for 17 years, and things are okay. You've been raised by mom and grandma. You've been, whoever it is, for the most part, that's who is your group. They've done a pretty good job because you're eligible in school and you become a big-time basketball player. Why all of a sudden do we need 20 other people coming into your world? And so that's the advice I always give. The process that I'm involved with, the recruiting process, hurts people. And, you know, I don't know all the particulars. I don't know a lot more than you guys know. I know that, you know, I think kids are put under a lot of pressure at young ages. I know there's too much. I don't think too much basketball is good. I don't think too much playing the trombone is good. I don't think too much, you know, working in medical school is good. You know, I think we're beating people up at a young age, and I think the process has to slow down a little bit. I don't think it's going to change how good you are. And some of the summer things, in my humble opinion, have to change. Does that mean it's got to be blown up or not? I don't know. But it's a little scary because I don't think we know what else is going on. You know, and everybody's not, you know, hey, I've been suspended for a game for, I don't know, I'm still trying to figure that out. But anyway, I was, so I'm not saying that, you know, everybody makes mistakes and everybody does something wrong. But I look at most of you media are from the state of Michigan, and to compliment my other coaches in this state, I think our state is sleeping fine. You know, I think they're sleeping fine in Ann Arbor and sleeping fine in Detroit and sleeping fine in Mount Pleasant and over at Western Michigan. I think they're all sleeping fine, and I feel bad because some people involved were friends of mine, some people involved. I don't know all the particulars, but just too many people touching these kids, and it's hard.
Coach, you've seen so much, obviously, in your career. Way in the back to your left. Back by the camera, sorry.
Gotcha.
You've seen so much.
Would you grow a little bit?
Yeah,
You know?
can't do that.
All these the whole year, I decided to dedicate this year to Judd, you know, so I'm going to give Juddisms, you know, and if that was me back there holding that mic, he'd say, Tom, why don't you stand up? So
Well, it's funny you bring up Judd, because
don't want to insult you, but since he insulted me, I'm going to throw it on you.
that's okay. It's not the first time.
I love it.
That's who I want to ask you about. You've gone through every season. You've seen so much. This will be the first year you won't be able to pick up the phone and call him. Have you had time to reflect on that and how that will go for you?
Yeah, I've had a lot of time, but especially the 6-7 hours that it was to fly out there and back. And, you know, we went out there on a plane. We took Gregory Kelser, myself, Edgar Wilson, Doug Herner, one of Judd's best friends, Paula Perrier, and George Johnson. It was an interesting trip. And so, yeah, you reflect on a lot of things. I had missed the Notre Dame game, but it was sure worth it to get out there and meet more of the people that he touched out there. And Judd's a unique person, and it will be a little more difficult. It'll be easier when we win a game and he tells me how bad my guards are. I'll be able to relax on that. It'll be more difficult because when we lose a game, he always came with all the good things that we did. And I'll have nobody doing that now. But I feel blessed that I was able to, I've got so many Juddisms that I even started writing them down because they've withstood now 23 years. And so I might not have his voice to tell me, but I've got it etched in the back of my head because he told me and told me and told me and told me again and again and again. And I think almost any situation I go through, I've got the memory of him telling me what I should do. So I think I'll do pretty well with that. And I was lucky to have him, and fortunate. And as I said at his funeral, I had 12 years with him as an assistant. I had 22 years with him as a mentor. We've had 90 years with him as a community, or they have. And now God's got him for an eternity, and personally, I think God cut off more than he can chew, because having Judd up there for an eternity is going to be a hell of a deal.
Tom, right here in the middle. Thinking back to when you recruited Tom, it feels like just the way that he's carried himself, the way he talks, he's been a senior ever since he's got here. Can you kind of just describe the change, if anything? What have you seen out of him since the day you recruited him, past 3 years, how he's acted? You talk about his leadership, how he holds guys together.
Yeah. When we got him, I appreciated him. But that very first year, Draymond was back for the whole summer and told me that I should name him captain. And I said, we don't have freshman captains. And he said, you got one now. And we didn't. But he acted like it then, and there hasn't been many 3-year captains. I don't know, Matt, you're the statistical guy here. What does your Duke education tell you? Have we had many of those? Maybe 2. So not many 3-year captains, and he's worthy of that accolade, and he's I just think he's a guy that makes you appreciate life. He started a motto at the beginning of the summer, when one day somebody was complaining about being there for some reason. And he said, you don't understand. We don't have to do this. We get to do this. And that has kind of been a motto now of our team every day. And it's so true. And the neat part is I believe it, but he lives it. He's taking it one step farther. He lives it. And that makes it good for me. He teaches me probably more than I've taught him. And hopefully he's going to will this team to have one of the great years in Michigan State history. And that's what we're looking to do. So in a nutshell, in closing, I do appreciate all the support you guys have given us, ladies, men, and hopefully we're going to continue to do what we've always done. It is getting a little crazier out in the world where questions get tougher for these guys and gets harder, but just have some patience with them. And as far as their youth and maybe their answers, but I think you got a good group to work with, and I think we should, have a good year. Our schedule, I didn't even talk about it, is going to be difficult. Different reasons this year. Last year we were traveling 16,000 miles in the first couple of weeks. This year, we go out to Portland, but this year we play 6 games in 13 days against all BCS schools, and that's going to be different. We're starting the Big Ten season in December. That's going to be different. We play the Big Ten tournament a week earlier in New York. That's going to be different. So there'll be a lot of unique things. Doesn't mean they're bad. They'll just be different, and we'll grow from it. So enjoy the team. Enjoy the day with them for whatever time you got. What do they got with them, an hour or so? And then we got a little, we're going to practice today, so it's going to be a crazy weeks coming up. We got the sleep out. Rico, are you sleeping out with us this year? No? Yeah. My crib is a hell of a tent. I got an 8-passenger one. I got an 8-passenger tent. You get your butt there, you got a spot. How's that? But so we got that coming up Friday. We've got the Midnight Madness. We've got the grand opening of the building. We got a lot of cool things. I don't know how many of you seen much of the building, but the weight room, the new floor, the locker rooms, the Hall of History is still being worked on, but they're going to have it done in a week and a day, so it's going to be an exciting time around here. Hope you enjoy it. Hope it's better for you, and thanks a lot for all the support. See ya.
He got it.